Hi guys, welcome back to The Social Tune, and today we are counting down the best albums of 2016. So before we start, let me make a couple of things clear. While 2016 had a pretty awful year in terms of the mainstream, the underground was bubbling with quality to the point where my top 9 worst albums of the year was really easy because there was very little to choose from. As for the best albums though, see, here's the thing. While the best albums of this year may not have been quite on the level as last year's best albums, there was still a ton of quality. And as always, these are my picks, my favorite albums of the year. If there's an album that isn't on this list, I either didn't like it, didn't hear it, or I liked it but it just missed the list. So either way, feel free to post your own top 10 albums of the year in the comments. And finally, and this is important, my cutoff date for albums is the 30th of November. So for an album to make this list, it needs to have been released between December 1st, 2015 and November 30th, 2016. So let's kick this off with an album that I didn't expect to make this list.
Tripping, I be wanting to start tripping, but I just big it and act like the bigger nigga. Cause I'm bold, dumb, and selective. So usually I'm bold, but selective. I'm bold, dumb, and selective.
Yep, like I mentioned in the previous video, I enjoyed the hell out of YG's latest effort. Okay, first of all, he got rid of DJ Mustard, which for me is only a good thing. But the reason that this is here is what he replaces him with, namely smooth 90s West Coast beats and some really weighty subject matter. Well, sometimes. In other words, this is probably better than it has any right to be, but it was certainly one of the most enjoyable rap albums of the year, especially on songs like Who Shot Me, about his real-life neuroses surrounding his shooting last year. So yeah, great job, YG.
I get so high if I can breathe, I'd be free, and I get high, I'd turn water to wine. If I can breathe, I'd breathe free, and that's
Easily one of the most overlooked albums of the year. This is kind of unfair, considering Congos were bound to make this list either way because I'm such a huge fan of their sound. Also, it's an album that explores ego. Oh, how well you know me. The instrumentation is fantastic, of course, but what really caught me off guard were the electronic touches. And lyrically, this is basically an album about how the everyman deals with fame and their ego inflating over time. And of course, Congos is smart enough to include themselves in that framing. All these things I've mentioned result in a fantastic listen and easily one of the best albums of the year. I have a complicated relationship with Green Day, mainly because the first album I ever heard from them was their best album, American Idiot, followed immediately by the Trilogy in 2012, which outside of a couple of good songs is pretty bad. However, this album is excellent. Definitely a return to form, with strong hooks and some really interesting writing, portraying them as the old guys, the ones who used to be young and full of righteous fury, now almost finding their lives dull as their heyday has passed them by and all the issues they were singing about are still present in today's society. So yeah, great album guys, welcome back.
I seen it vividly jogging my brain memory, life no I seen it vividly jogging my brain memory, life no long infinity. This was the final calling. No birds chirping or flying, no dogs barking. We are nervous and crying, moving and gushing.
I almost didn't want to include this because it's Kendrick's worst project to date, which is kind of to be expected considering this is basically a bunch of B-sides from his last album, which still handily beat out most of what I heard this year. Who cares? Quality is quality, and there is definitely a ton of it here. Heck, he even manages a thematic through line, which not many people would be able to do on this kind of project. If you didn't like To Pimp a Butterfly, I can't promise you'll like this, but if you did, definitely check this out. Easily one of the best rap records of the year from the artist who just keeps on giving. Currently one of the most hated and beloved bands around. As for me, Well, while I'm not quite a die-hard fan in the way I am a Kendrick or 21 Pilots fan, I would still say that they're great, creating some really strong 80s-inspired music. In fact, the only thing I don't like about this album are the overly long and overindulgent instrumental interludes. And the only reason for that is because I think these guys have an amazing talent for hooks. So yeah, love them or hate them, you've gotta admit this is more than just derivative pop music, and it is easily one of the best albums I heard all year.
Lyrically, I'm untouchable, uncrushable. Running in a 600, running in a 600. Untouchable, uncrushable.
Here we have the first of two albums that came out in late 2015 that made this list. And yeah, while I do wish we actually got that album we were promised this year, The Prelude is still a great album in its own right. Pusha T has always been a great rapper, but this is easily his most consistent album to date. Maybe not quite reaching the highs of, say, Nostalgia with Kendrick Lamar, but still, if you want some dark, intriguing hip-hop set over some really fantastic production, then definitely check this one out. Great job, King Push. Hope we get that album in 2017.
You got to hold yourself back, put yourself last, never first. Always make them laugh, say you're sorry, don't make it worse. Take a deep breath, give them what they want and smile all my life.
Another of the most underrated albums of the year. While Brandy Clark's album lost its grip on me over time, outside of a couple of excellent songs of course, this album just kept growing on me. I'd argue that pop country is probably one of the toughest genres to do right. Namely because people already have a low tolerance for country, and most country fans can't stand pop music, which incidentally is also a tough genre to do well. But Jennifer Nettles brings righteous fury, phenomenal range, and some really varied production to create a delightful album exploring her own independence. Not just as a woman, but as a woman among women, as they're the ones she feels judgment from most of all. Fantastic album, glad I can finally give it the praise it's due. It made my mid-year list, and for damn good reason, because it's an excellent pop rock album. And even though a couple of albums on that list faded on me over time, this album kept its consistency over the following months. For its catchiness, ridiculously self-aware, and borderline insufferable writing, which of course is the point, and overall a standout in Weezer's discography, which is only natural considering they went back to their roots, which I know wasn't popular for everyone, but for me, it definitely works. Damn great album, well done guys.
I'm the only one. On your AM radio.
You know, music can be weird and off the wall and still be really catchy. So when I heard the guy who made this,
Snipe. Severus Snape.
and made a pop rock album, I was intrigued. And bit by bit, song by song, each weird scenario portrayed in the lyrics started to make sense. It's basically an album full of internet references and conspiracy theories without resorting to, say, memes. If you like weird music that isn't afraid to be catchy as hell, I can't recommend this highly enough. Who would have guessed that Neil Ciceregua would make one of the best pop albums of the year? Check this out, it's awesome.
Under the weight of time, in this still life of our design, collapse into a great resolve.
This album had an uphill battle to win me over, considering it's one of the few genres I tend to avoid, namely thrash metal. And yeah, it's faded on me a little bit, but I'm still really glad I checked this out, because it's still great, and it led me to the rest of Vector's discography, which is gold. Make no mistake, this album is epic, but it's not even their best work. And like I said in my mid-year review, while the story really is what makes it the gem it really is worth the price of this album on its own. I have to highlight the incredible musicianship on these tracks. If you have heard this album, chances are you know exactly what I mean. And if you haven't, check it out. It's a true gem from an act I seriously underrated.
But if you're gonna talk like that, at least buy another round. And we can keep drinking till St. Dymphna kicks us out.
And here we have the most stripped back album on this list, with nothing but piano, guitar, and harmonica. Easily the most organic album I heard all year. Some may call this guy just another typical white guy with acoustic guitar, but his composition and writing are far superior. It's important to note that a lot of this album is fueled by rage and loneliness, stemming from rape charges that he has been combating for the past 2 years, which were eventually proved false when the woman who was pressing the charges admitted that she had lied. And yet, an incident like that, of course, had a lot of repercussions, even if he wasn't guilty, from both his fans and his family. And on this album, he deals with those demons. Heartbreaking, complex, and raw. Fantastic album.
Getting all that shit, now come on, you gon' have to back it up. If I get too high now, sugar, come on, I might never come down, I might never come down.
Oh boy, once summer started, you had better believe that I had this on repeat for days on end. Anderson .Paak really is a wonderful performer, and with the exception of Denzel Curry, seeing who he was tossed in with on the XXL freshman list this year was downright insulting. I've been intrigued by this guy since I heard him on Compton: A Soundtrack last year, but this album just blew me away, with incredible grooves and surprisingly strong writing. It's a fantastic album with an incredible fun atmosphere. Mainstream public, do not pass this guy up any longer, because this is absolutely wonderful. If these guys weren't making symphonic metal, they would be superstars. The fact that these guys are ambitious enough to tackle a subject matter as intricate as what if the universe was a hologram is one thing, but the fact that they pull it off so well is frankly astonishing. Managing not just to dive in deep into the subject matter, going way beyond the surface level, but somehow translating those ideas into songs that are actually catchy with incredible hooks and melodies, backed up by a symphonic choir which is flat out gorgeous. This is practically operatic, and yeah, it's wonderful. Check it out. Again, yes, I know it came out in late 2015, but 1, it came out December 18th after my cutoff date, and 2, it's fantastic, easily their best since the Red and Blue projects. I don't endorse many sludge metal acts, but Baroness bring fantastic instrumentation and hooks to the table that so many of their contemporaries are missing. Not to mention songs like the explosive Shock Me would have easily made my top 50 songs of 2015. As for 2016, well, you'll just have to wait and see. But either way, this is one of the best revitalization albums that I've heard in years. And if you're a fan of metal, or heck, just a fan of fantastic music, you need to check out Purple by Baroness. Well worth the price.
My little brother is a funny dude. A lot of funny shit happened to him. My other brother pretty funny too. Ain't seen him in a minute though.
Look, it's not his best album, but who cares? It's an Aesop Rock album, and this is probably his most accessible album to date. I stand by my argument that the production has a couple of down moments, but again, Aesop himself makes it all worth it. He's so charismatic that you can't help hanging on to his every word, but he's so intricate that, try as you might, eventually you lose track of what he's saying. I love that I want to hear what he has to say, but that he doesn't make it easy for me. And I can really see myself gravitating towards this album more and more as I get older, as this is really an album written for adults, not because it's gory or overly sexual, but because it's mature and reflective. Absolutely quintessential album. Give this guy a chance. You won't regret it.
I might forget back when it's time for your West we do. You ain't heard like this before. They don't do it like this no more. They get on that, they get on that, they get on that, pop on the block. You ain't heard like this before. They don't do it like this no more.
Oh boy, This was a wonderful surprise. I was hoping for the best, but I really wasn't too sure what to expect from Danny Brown this time around. In retrospect, if I had bothered to check out the singles that came out before this album's release, I wouldn't have worried, because this is fantastic. Dark, gritty, completely insane both instrumentally and lyrically. The first track, Downward Spiral, is a very apt opener, as that's exactly what this album is, a spiral into a loss of control because of drug abuse, which is not framed even remotely glamorously. It's vile, yet catchy, unpleasant, yet a ton of wild fun. It's just incredible. Everyone has praised this album, and I am more than happy to join the choir. Fantastic work, Danny Brown. You finally made your masterpiece. Okay, you fanboys, it's not quite on the same level as Ayreon, but really what is? And even so, it doesn't take away from the quality of this album. A continuation of the story that started on their last album, which you really don't need to listen to in order to appreciate this one, depicting a society where cold, hard logic has taken over everything and dreams and gods have gone to die. And yet, it's surprisingly nuanced, listing the benefits of both sides. But while the lyrics really are great, it's the hooks and the instrumentation that really shine through, especially on those awesome guitar solos on songs like Master of the Pendulum and Babylon Vampires. Fantastic album, Avantasia's best work, at least in my opinion, so please check it out.
If you wanna bleed, just bleed. And if you wanna bleed, just bleed.
I can imagine that many of you will get angry with me for placing this as low as I am. Well, despite that, it's still here, and I still believe it's easily his most heartbreaking album to date. It really is incredible how well Nick Cave can work over such minimal, glassy production, and of course the poetry is just superb. The gothic instrumentation ranges from dark and haunting to beautifully tragic. Nick Cave's voice trembles and quavers and howls as he contemplates one of the greatest pains a father can ever go through, the death of his 15-year-old son Arthur last year. Never have I been so moved by a Nick Cave album, which is impressive considering his output. But ultimately, this is an album I can appreciate a lot more than I actually enjoy it. It's so dark and so personal that it's honestly hard to listen to as a fan of Nick Cave. On most of his other albums, there's a thrill and a catharsis that ropes you in. But here, there is no thrill, just a ton of choking up. This is not an easy album to listen to, and in all honesty, in good conscience, I could not place it higher than this. Still though, if you want to hear an album from the point of view of a great man stricken by grief, and his path to overcoming that grief slowly, painfully, but surely, you need to check this out. Nick Cave, you did it again, and I can't begin to express my sorrow for you, but like you said, while nothing is for free, some actions can be liberating, and I hope this was for you. Oh my god, I love this. While the style here really is something I'm just head over heels for, the main reason this album is here is Kyle Kraft. I mean, wow, this guy is talented. He's also a bit of an introverted oddball, the kind of guy I'd love to hang out with. I also had a ton of people telling me that we looked alike all year, which I don't really see, but okay. The point is, in terms of poetry, hooks, theatricality, lyricism, and pretty much every other facet, this album hooked me instantly, and I haven't looked back since. Incredible album, easily one of the most underrated of the year, as well as one of the best.
Against men, they need a disguise, but here's a news flash: the media lies. Dang, I've seen it all. Shoulda known.
Open Mike Eagle is, to put it bluntly, my perfect MC, and I've been a fan of his for a good 3 years now. Great voice, incredibly smart, self-aware, and most of all, funny as hell. When he's rapping, I'm just in awe of his incredible wordplay, which is sustained even more by his infectious sing-song delivery. Now, his last album, Dark Comedy, was a classic album, so I didn't go into this expecting anything better. And let me be clear, this album is not better than Dark Comedy, but it's so radically different that it sort of carves out its own niche all on its own anyway. And while I could go on for days about the incredible lines and fantastic flows all across this album, in my mid-year review I seriously neglected to mention how great Paul White is here. His production is subtle, organic, and beautiful. And once again, that's not even touching on the fantastic lyrics, diving into Open Mike Eagle's struggle as a black man in America, as well as an oddball within that black community. Incredible album, such a profound understanding of people in general. And now we enter the top 10, the true, undeniable classics. So let's start off with...
You love the sons of the pioneers and the Hollywood cowboy stars. You were just trying to put a hand to where we are. Where we are.
Even though this album came out in June, I didn't actually check it out until late October. But I'm so glad I did. After having such an amazing year for folk and country, I didn't think anything could really surprise me anymore, but that's exactly what this did. The melodies and compositions on this album are just incredible, some of the best I heard all year. And the fact that they're paired with fantastic lyrics, diving into several chilling songs ranging from unreciprocated passion to dead songwriters, makes it all the more rewarding. If you're a fan of any of these women, or heck, just a fan of incredible folk music, you need to hear the three-way collaboration between Nico Case, Katie Lang, and Laura Veers, because it's one of the best folk records of the decade. Trust me on that.
Somebody else took his place and bravely cried, I'm a black star, I'm a black star. How many times does an angel fall?
I love this album from the very beginning, but the reason it's so high on this list compared to my mid-year review is threefold. One, I happened to hear it among a playlist of Bowie's entire discography, and it held up really well on its own. Two, while discussing this album with a friend, he asked me to name my least favorite song on the album, and I realized I couldn't. And three, it's an album about death from the point of view of a man who is face to face with it. The concept is so weird and outlandish that it really could only come from a man like David Bowie. Plus, considering this is an album that was reportedly heavily inspired by To Pimp a Butterfly, it's no wonder this album is amazing, from the haunting title track to the tear-jerking closer. Utterly beautiful, completely unique, and really, I couldn't have expected less from such a unique and wonderful human being. Rest in peace, David Bowie. You've ensured your legacy.
That's when he gave to me with his gun and his head held high. He told me not to cry. Oh, my daddy said shoot.
Yeah, wow, I did not expect this. I never thought the day would come when Beyonce would make an album with this much kick to it. It truly is fantastic, and in my opinion, her best work to date. It's opulent, beautifully produced, fantastically performed, and has writing credits from all kinds of people, including Josh Tillman, aka Father John Misty, who, if you remember, made my favorite album of last year. This is something special, full of raw, genuine emotion from a woman whose appeal I'd never got previously. But she made it, and I can't take that away from her. This album blends so many styles and leaps across so many genres that it honestly reminds me more than a little of one of my favorite albums of last year, Blurry Face by 21 Pilots. And that is high praise indeed. Great job, B! Let's see if you get that reference. Glad to finally say those words.
Gentrify here, now it's not a shithole. Trendsetter, I know my shit's cold. Handsetter, baby, because I ain't so bold. But yeah, all you black folks, you must go.
The legendary hip-hop veterans return for an amazing final album. And while De La Soul returned greatness on And the Anonymous Nobody, tried to deliver excellence, pulling together a bunch of collaborators and create one of the best albums that I heard all year. And while I won't call it perfect as some people have, I still have to admit that for a veteran hip-hop group to come back after 20 years of silence and deliver something of this quality without skipping a beat, that is just incredible. Oh, and on top of that, it's a double album, making the consistently high quality all the more impressive. Thank you for an incredible career, guys. Your place in music history is secure. I'll be honest, it took a while for this to click with me. It's definitely great, but at first there were some production choices that I wasn't too sure about. Although the lyrics seemed simple at first, I actually read along with them at some point and oh boy, this album is raw. And I mean that in every way, from its production to its instrumentation to its amazing lyrics. This is a woman who is clearly sick of music critics, including myself, categorizing her as just another feisty country artist. And so, Lydia Loveless decided to reach new heights with her own power pop inspired album. And then you have her singing, which is powerful as hell. So basically, the footage for the rest of my number 6 and for my number 5 were corrupted, so I actually have to re-film them now, just very quickly, so hopefully you don't mind that. And it's Christmas morning where I am, so Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. And now on to the actual list. So then of course you have Lydia Lovelace's singing, which is powerful as hell, as her voice fills with emotion as she describes a number of failing relationships where she is not painted in a good light at all. I'll be honest, before I heard this, outside of a couple of songs, I had no real interest in Lydia Lovelace. But hey, while I'm late to the party, at least I'm here now, right? And yeah, Lydia Lovelace, you just keep going along this path. Keep making music that is this genuine. Fantastic album.
Can't keep everything the way you want. Feels like even the ghosts are getting out, even up on your hometown.
Now, if there was one album that had the potential to beat out Southern Family for me for Country Album of the Year, this was it. I've been a Lori McKenna fan for years now, and she does not stop giving in terms of quality albums. For me, Lori McKenna is probably the perfect country artist, as sharp as Casey Musgraves, and yet as gentle as Brandy Clark in her softer moments. And in terms of writing and nuanced framing, she easily matches both of them. And as for country in general, I'll be honest, this is almost on par with Same Trailer Different Part by Casey Musgraves, or Lori McKenna's own Lorraine, or Numbered Doors. Just another classic to her name. Oh, and did I mention it was produced by Dave Cobb? Fantastic job, Lori McKenna. Just keep on making music, please.
Where you at? Get relentless with it. Where you at? Where you at? Let's get reckless with it. Where you at? How I love it, live it, attack it. I keep coming and I get it. Right now, more than ever.
So if you saw my best albums of 2015, you may remember that while I did agree with the majority of critics in saying that To Pimp a Butterfly was the best hip-hop album last year, I also expressed my disappointment that another hip-hop album placed just one slot lower had not been discussed by more people outside of Mike Seatown and Spectrum Pulse. That album was All Hands by the hip-hop collective Doomtree, and this is Sims, one of the 5 rappers from that collective, teaming up with Laserbeak, one of their 2 producers, to create one of the most personal and heart-wrenching albums ever to come out of that camp. This album has Sims questioning all of his ideals, as he tries to battle the system, then trying to conform to it so as not to get hurt, only to get hurt anyway and throwing up his hands in frustration. I have rarely heard him sound better as a rapper, and I have never heard him sound as good as a performer. And while Dessa still is my favorite rapper in the collective, because duh, she's everybody's favorite, this album gave me a new appreciation for an artist who I didn't think could surprise me any further. Incredible album, do not pass this one up.
Hail to the working man, my son, up there trying to get it done. When every horse needs water and every weed needs some.
Yeah, well, it's not quite perfect. It comes closer to perfect than pretty much any country album I have heard in this past decade. From its somber moments to its joyful ones, this album just bleeds country and is absolute ecstasy for anyone who is familiar with the genre's best aspects. It's truly amazing just how many subgenres this album leaps across, as well as how many emotions it just nails. And the fact that all this was orchestrated by just one producer is all the more stunning. Plus, this album had more contenders for my top 50 songs of the year on it than any album I heard in this past year. Without question, the best country album of the year. Check this one out, guys. And yes, while this was my #1 album back in June, it's not quite the best album of the year. But before we get to that...
Come home, Grace, come home. Oh, Grace, won't you come back home?
Yeah, this shouldn't surprise anyone who saw my one and only review to date. It truly is one of the most ambitious rap albums ever written, and it does everything to get there. Now, for those of you asking, why not a 10? Well, first of all, I give very, very few albums a 10. And honestly, little Easter eggs like the missing word on Interlude 2 showing up on Air 'Em Out are cute, but not exactly on topic. Just a reference to one of their other songs. And I know that's a nitpick, but I have to be honest here. Although I will give Daveed Diggs big props for his verses here, the writing is truly excellent, including a Kendrick Lamar reference that cements Kendrick in rap music history, at least as far as clipping is concerned, which I certainly agree with. Never before has a space opera given me this much food for thought, and believe me, I have seen and listened to a ton of space operas. This album may not have the incredible standouts of their self-titled album, but it still surpasses it as a whole. Easily the best rap album of the year, as well as one of the best albums I have ever heard. But overall, gun to my head, I think there's one album that I like just a little bit more. And here it is.
We are not a proud race. It's not a race at all. We're just trying. I'm only trying to get home. Drunk drivers, drunk drivers.
While Clipping and Bowie made very outlandish projects, this is an album that is defiantly down to earth and pulls no punches. Will Toledo really impressed me with his debut studio effort, for his incredible insight and maturity beyond his years. You could easily see this as an album defending teenagers, while just as easily classifying it as an album thrashing them. The trick is, it's both. This is an album about the pain of being judged, and about the stress of being expected to be able to do things without being told how to do them, which strays right up to the line of emo and self-indulgent before spinning round and pointing its finger back at the audience. And yes, while I've also complained about not being taken seriously by the older generation, I also find myself turning right back and judging the next one. This effectively makes this album absolutely timeless, and songs about depression, self-drug, and alcohol abuse just clinch the deal for me. And as someone who moved away from home this year and is living on his own for the first time, no other album spoke to me quite like this one did. Fantastically written, wonderfully produced, rough as hell, this album is one of a kind. And it's also my pick for the best album of 2016. Fantastic job, Will Toledo, and the rest of Car Seat Headrest. And thank you guys for your support. And here's to another great year, hopefully. Next time we'll be diving into our final list to the top 50 songs of the year. So please subscribe so you don't miss a thing. And until then, I'm Finn, and this is The Social Tunes, signing off.